Hey guys, I'm going to be showing you the steps for the next project. This one's a little bit more design oriented than the freeform project that you just completed or are working on, but it's got the same basic principles of line weight, patterning, design. But this time what you're going to do is tell a story. I call this the hands telling a story project. So you're going to have your hands drawn and you're going to tell a story using visual imagery within that drawing of your hand. And it's a simple case of tracing your hand. So all you have to do is get your pen, trace your hand. Now this sketchbook is just barely big enough for my two hands, in fact they won't fit unless I overlap them a bit, which is fine if you're in that case. And don't worry if it gets a little jaggedy like I did there, because through your design process you can clean it up. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to overlap my hands. And you have to take a little more time, obviously, if you're drawing with your non-dominant hand. You notice I'm doing this directly in ink. If you're more comfortable doing this in pencil first, I'm going to make that one go under. If you want to do it in pencil first and then trace your pencil in ink and erase the pencil, that's okay. I prefer to just go directly in ink, and if I do make a little mistake, then I just fix it up. I just hide it within the design later. And I'll show you what I mean by what could be considered a mistake. This here, I probably should have thought out. Actually, I kind of like that now that I look at it. It creates some really interesting overlapping. And this one here, I'm just going to continue that line up where I didn't quite. So this one's overlapping, these ones are intermingled. Excuse me. And then I would just start, usually I start by taking a little heavier marker. So I started with a Sharpie fine point, actually ultra fine point. I don't know if you can see that. Then I take my regular Sharpie, or whatever heavier pen I have, and I simply trace around, because usually I want the outline to be a little bit heavier. You can tell which knuckles I have arthritis in, eh? That one's overlapping, so we'll go over. Now I'm going to think about what I'm doing here. Where do I want the dominant line to be? I think I'm going to put it on this other hand. So you see, you get an interesting shape right there. Already makes me think of like Star Trek or an arrowhead or something. Star Trek being the symbol they wear on their tunics. Now there are some options. There's no color involved in this one. I want you to stick purely with line. Let your variety of line do the work for you. So you're looking at line weight, pattern, shape, line quality, that kind of stuff. And your hatching that we practiced before comes into play a little bit too, the stuff we used to do. So this here, even though that's not really what I want, I can probably turn that into something and use that. Now there are a couple options. You can do your two hands like I've done here. Dry throat today. Or you can do one hand and a tool or an image from your story that you are using in the process of making the story. And by story, I mean something that you've done, something you want to do, games you like, anything. I mean, this could be a hand with a game controller if you wanted. If you got real creative and did two hands with a game controller, you'd have to figure out how to manipulate your hands. So either do one hand and one item or do two hands. I think we'll keep it simple that way. And then you just start designing within, and you start putting shapes that tell the story of what you're trying to tell. And I've already started another one. And yes, I realize this is all upside down. I'm just trying to see if this is better than from the side. So I drew my hand and my hatchet because I like to go out in the woods, and I have a little secret woods that I go to, and I have a shelter there and a campfire, and that's what I like to do. That's what's been keeping me sane through this. So on my hand, I turn the fingers into trees, and then the tree roots come down into this part of the hand, you know, where the bones and tendons continue. And then I started over here on the thumb, and this tree here, oh, left my pen open too long. This tree that's on its side is the tree that makes up the lean-to part of my, it's the basic support of my shelter. And I've just started adding little details. You can see I've added side posts there. And this is where you have to play with your line weight a bit. Where does it need to be heavier? And where does it need to be thinner? That's good for now. Under here is dark, so I'm just going to do some hatching. Now, in my real shelter, my campfire is out here, but I'm going to put flames. How do I want to do this? Danger. Flames licking the sides of my shelter. And again, I'm doing this straight and pen. I want this to be very random, this flame part that I'm doing. Give it a little bit of movement. Put a stick in there. If you want to do it in pencil first, the problem with doing it in pencil first is things tend to get a little bit smudgy and your end product looks dirty. So if you take your time more with your pen, I want to get the feeling of bark here. So I'm just doing random lines. Just get it to feel like it has a texture, almost topographical map-like. If you want to see my campsite, you can since you're going to my YouTube channel anyway for these, you'll see playlists of me out on my adventures out in the woods, and then my bush camp, which I call Camp Deadwood. I'll let that one trail a bit more. So make these stories from your experiences. It doesn't matter what experiences. It's just you telling a story using visual imagery. No words. Don't want any words in these. As designers, you have to be able to tell a full story with not a single word. Now, graphic design is all about type. I'll give you that. And the use of words is important. But you'll also realize as you get more and more into this that less is better. So if your image can do the talking for you, I take that one down a little bit too, then let the image talk. This is especially true in art in general. Art as opposed to graphic design. So I'm just heavy in this line up here, trying to keep it loose and kind of sporadic. I don't want it thick like the outside line. I don't want that, that's going to compete too much. So right here I've got three qualities of line. This line, this outside line on the trees, and then the inner line creating the bark effect. And that's three line weights, three separate line weights. Line quality is kind of rough and jagged because it should be organic. You want it to feel organic doing this, what I'm doing. Now you might be doing something with machinery where you want all your lines clean and crisp and straight, and that's fine, and use the tools that you need to use. If you want to use templates for this, for circles and things like that, whatever it takes to make your design, your story happen. Now all your imagery, all your storytelling has to stay within the hand and within the object, or within the two hands. Don't put anything on the outside, okay? That we want to be, it's just plain white space. We want everything focused in the hand and the hatchet, or whatever tool you put, or whatever item you put, or your two hands. Otherwise it starts to get a little cluttered. That's a nice shape right there. See that shape? That's a nice shape. And you'll find that as you do that. You might want to leave, I'm going to leave that shape there by itself for now. I don't want to be tempted to fill it right up right away. There. And now what I could do is start doing some hatching in there just to make this stand out. Doesn't have to be perfectly even. If you're thinking about, and that kind of represents the fingernail too. If you're thinking about like sky or nighttime or whatever, background, atmosphere, it's not even. When we think and we look outside and we look through the air, we think, oh, it's even. But really it's not in a lot of ways, because it's affected by light. It's affected by weather. It's affected by pollution. So you could almost consider air a solid when you're drawing, which sounds really weird. And you see, this changes, just doing this changes the story, changes the feel of the imagery. It feels different already. I think I'm going to continue this down here, try and get the same angle. And do what I did there. Step back once in a while and look at it. This under here is the underside of the hatchet, so I'm going to throw some hatching under there, hatching on the hatchet. You can see a couple places there I went over. I don't worry about that. I can fix that later. In fact, I'll probably put like a little shadow or something up there. Now here's a case where I might consider, because if I wanted to continue those lines down through here, I don't know that I'm going to, but if I did, I would want to use a ruler maybe, just maybe. Depends how I want to go with it. Maybe here. Start to put leaves. Since it's spring and the last time I was out there, which was earlier this week, actually on the weekend, or what day was it? I forget what day it was, but everything's budding out now. I was out there and looking at all the trees starting to come alive, so I might have some leaves there. It's very stylized, they don't have to be fancy. These I might go around, go a little heavier on the line there. Leave it for now and see what I think. And then just keep going with your design. Maybe my hatchet is also my haversack. Haversack's just a backpack that you throw over your shoulder as opposed to on your back. And I recently made one out of burlap. So that's definitely a huge part of my story. It's got ties that come up and loop around from the bottom. Made of kind of a rope. So you can see I drew right over other lines, didn't worry about it. It's all going to hide eventually anyway. This is a black toggle that I put on the flap of my haversack. You notice I just colored it in randomly and then I went and cleaned up the lines. It's easier that way. It's got a black strap on it, which is an old web belt that I had. Just realized this video is getting long. I don't want that to be solid black though, because it's material. And then a little heavier line on around the outlines of the sack. And it's, like I said, it's burlap. And I'm just going to be fairly loosely representational. because burlap has a heavy weave. But I don't want to go into that kind of detail, especially for something like this. There you go. And I'll probably keep working on it. I'm going to end this video now because it has gotten longer than I expected. So I will post instructions for you guys as well as other samples. Same process. Look at the samples. Do some practice. If you want to do a practice one in your sketchbook first, like I did 2 here, I could definitely have used this as practice. But look at the due date that I'll post, okay? And keep working on your current one, and we'll get these things rocking and rolling. So have a good day, guys, and have fun with this one. It should be fun. If you're not having fun, maybe you're in the wrong area. Have fun with this stuff. I know it's a lot of hard work, but you'll get there, and you should be having fun.